Discover the miraculous secrets of the Psalms, 7 transforming insights to ignite your faith. In the 3rd year of Jehoiakim, king of Judah, David, once a simple shepherd, finds himself burdened by the weight of a kingdom. The sounds of a distant rebellion echo in his heart, as his beloved son, Absalom, has turned against him, consuming the land with strife and whispers of betrayal. As shadows loom over the palace like a dark storm cloud, David retreats to the fragrant solace of the palm trees, yearning for a voice of truth amidst the confusion. Kneeling down among the rustling leaves, he pours out his anguish to God. "How long, O Lord?" he cries, his heart heavy with despair. With trembling hands, he begins to pen words that embody his suffering. My God, he laments, why have you forsaken me?" Each line he writes resonates with the battle-worn trials of his days, not just the fierce lion and bear he once defeated, but the deeper, more painful confrontations with his own flesh and blood. "Restore to me the joy of your salvation," he pleads, desperately seeking divine intervention. The rhythms of worship practiced by the Levites wash over him like the gentle whispers of ancient traditions. He recalls the incense that filled the tabernacle air, a mist symbolizing the prayers of countless hearts, as he allows Psalm 23 to seep into his spirit, "The Lord is my shepherd." Through these words, he sees the duality of his existence, the gentle shepherd of Israel and the harsh reality of being a king. Each psalm he writes becomes a lifeline, rich in insights of trust and divine rescue. "You, O Lord, are a shield about me," he declares in fervent faith, the weight of his responsibility colliding with the assurance of God's unfailing love. As rumors of Absalom's swelling army filter through the land, fear grips the heart of David's loyal followers. He wrestles with guilt, recalling how often he may have failed to extend a father's love and guidance. The irony gnaws at him: how could a son so loved choose rebellion over reconciliation? How could the anointed king of Israel be brought low by the very blood that runs through his veins? Caught between love and duty, he writes a lament, which transforms into a cry to the heavens. His manuscripts become a tapestry of hope woven through despair, igniting flickers of faith for his people who sing these praises during dark times. He is not simply writing but conversing with his Creator, a dialogue that reveals the depth of his reliance on God amid escalating trials. Before we continue with this incredible biblical account, I want to make sure you don't miss any of these powerful scripture stories. Click the bell icon and select all notifications. These biblical narratives have transformed countless lives throughout history. If God's word through this story is blessing you, please like and share with someone who needs to hear about God's faithfulness today. Tell me in the comments, which biblical story has most impacted your faith journey? I'm always amazed how God's word speaks to hearts across generations. Now let's continue with what the Lord did next. As David prepares for the inevitable confrontation with Absalom, he feels the eternal weight of legacy and covenant promises pressing upon him. Each verse penned is suffused with a yearning for divine clarity and resolution. The echoes of the Psalms resonate deeply within his spirit. "The Lord is my light and my salvation, whom shall I fear?" Yet, the darkness of impending strife lingers, looming like a shadow over the heart of a king torn between love for his son and the weight of his crown. In this moment, the story pauses, challenging the reader to contemplate: can faith withstand the profound trials of betrayal and loss? God's purpose unveils a deeper significance through the pages of David's heart, quietly beckoning us to seek the divine in our own trials. The narrative of struggle continues, waiting for the next revelation of faith's resilience amidst uncertainty. As dawn approached the horizon, David rose before the sun, his heart a tumult of anticipation and dread. The edges of the sky began to burn with the first light of day, but inside him raged a storm fiercer than any tempest. He gathered his faithful servants, the remnants of his court, and spoke with urgency: "Let us prepare for the day that lies before us. I will not flee from my son, but I will seek peace." His men looked at him, uncertainty flickering in their eyes. Some eyed the horizon, where the banners of Absalom's army whispered promises of rebellion. David saw their fear and felt his own heart ache under the weight of love weighed against loyalty. "For what is a king if he cannot protect his own household?" he murmured to himself, his brow furrowed with the profound burden of leadership. And so, David marched toward the gates of the city. His thoughts were heavy with the prophetic words he had once received: words that spoke of his lineage and divine promises. Yet, in this fragile hour, as he prepared to confront the son whom he had nurtured, he yearned for wisdom that could only be granted by the Lord. He paused, lifting his eyes toward the heavens. "O Lord, let your will be done." As the sun ascended higher, casting warm rays upon the earth, the sound of approaching hooves rumbled in the distance. Absalom had come, leading his men with the fierce swagger of youth mixed with the intoxicating allure of ambition. David's heart clenched at the thought of the confrontation that would soon unfold. It felt as though the weight of the very heavens bore down upon him. "Draw near, my son," David called out, desperation lacing his voice as he approached the edge of the city, hands raised in supplication. "Why have you sought my life? Have I not shown you love? Have I not cherished you?" Absalom, proud and deemed rightful, gazed upon his father with a mixture of defiance and hurt. "You have failed us, father. You were once our champion, but now you are a relic of the past." His words pierced like arrows, echoing the betrayal that had marred their bond. With every glance exchanged, the fraying threads of family-turned rivalry pulled tighter. David felt the silent cries of anguish in his chest, an echo of despair that had once driven him to pen the very psalms that spoke to his soul. "Is there no reconciliation?" he pleaded, voice breaking. "Look not upon the sins of your father. Turn back, and let us dwell together in peace." But Absalom's resolve had hardened, as stubborn as stone. "The hearts of the people turn toward me," he proclaimed, his voice ringing with the authority of one who believes himself chosen. "It is you who are outdated, standing in the way of what Israel desires." In that moment of desperation, David recalled the promise given to him, the covenant that his lineage would forever endure. Yet prophecy was not without its trials. The pain of his son's rejection seemed to drown out the echoes of divine oath. He closed his eyes, seeking shelter in the ever-present promise of God. His psalms whispered back to him, stirring hope amidst despair. As the armies drew closer, encircling the heart of David's reign, he sensed a profound shift, not merely a collision of father against son, but a celestial battle manifesting on earthly soil. David, filled with the heavy burden of prophetic potential, spoke aloud the truths that had shaped his life. "Whatever comes today, O Lord, may your glory be revealed." As the clash of arms began, David stood resolute, poised between love and the kingdom ordained by the Most High. But what he did not know was that God's plan was far more intricate than he could ever fathom. As the clash of armies raged before the gates of the city, the air thickened with the tension of the moment. David's heart was torn as he stood as both a father and a king, each role battling within him. He looked upon Absalom, riding like a dark apparition against the backdrop of dawn. my son," he cried, his voice trembling with sorrow. "The blood that unites us runs thick with love. Do not let ambition sever the bonds that God has tied." But Absalom was resolute. "You are no longer my father but an obstacle to my kingdom," he shouted back, lifting his spear high, as if calling the very sky to judge their discord. David, feeling the weight of the choice before him, gripped his heart in prayer, calling upon the heavens, "O God, glimpse my heart. Spare us from the fate of destruction. Show us the way to reconciliation." His men surrounded him, torn between their loyalty to the king and their fear of the youthful ambitions in Absalom's eyes. Each one felt the pull of the divided house, and whispers of doubt mingled with the sounds of clashing swords. Would they stand with David, or would they join the cause of the one who promised a new reign? Suddenly, from the rear of the encampment, a figure emerged bearing a handful of dust. It was Ittai the Gittite, an unexpected light amid the shadows of betrayal. "As the Lord lives and as my lord the king lives, wherever my lord may be, whether for death or for life, there also will your servant be," he proclaimed resolutely, drawing the gaze of the warring factions. His words struck a chord of loyalty in the hearts of David's men. "Strengthen my soul, O Lord," David murmured, as he witnessed the unity forming around him. The cry of Ittai rose like a sweet incense before God, stirring hope amidst despair. The loyalty of a friend in the face of treachery reminded David of the covenant bond he shared with his people. Even in the valley of death, I will not fear. With a newfound strength, David addressed his followers, a new resolve reflecting in his eyes. Rise up. For the battle is not merely ours, but of the Lord. Let us defend our families, our homes, and our covenant with God. But Absalom, catching the fervor of the moment, gathered his men, his voice rising above the tumult. How long shall we cling to the past? Join me, my brothers, and let us forge a new destiny. The hearts of the men teetered dangerously between loyalty to the king they had long served or the seductive promise of a new era under Absalom, and then, within that moment of tumult, a prophet arrived, cloaked in humility yet with the boldness of the Most High. David. Hear the word of the Lord. The crown of Israel shall not be torn from your head, nor shall your lineage be cursed. For God has ordained not just a king, but a lineage through trials and strife shall a greater king arise. The people murmured, pondering the wisdom of this man, and a shift began to ripple through the crowd. David, bathed in prayer, felt the heavy cloak of despair lift, replaced by the assurance that God's plan was indeed larger than his understanding. As the silence fell momentarily, David glanced upward and whispered with newfound courage, even in the darkest corners, "Your light is there, O Lord." The storm gathered once again, swords clashed, hearts raced, and the fate of many hung in the balance. David clenched his fists, ready to defend his kingdom, not only against Absalom's spear but against the very forces of chaos that threatened to consume them all. Yet, unknown to David, a deeper mystery lurked within God's plan, waiting to unfold from the ashes of battle. For what must come next is not merely victory or defeat, but a revelation that divine purpose weaves through pain, even unto restoration. As the sun rose higher in the sky, casting its golden light over the battlefield, the cries of men echoed like thunder across the valley. The forces of Absalom surged forward, fierce and relentless, their eyes ignited with the flames of ambition. David, resolute in spirit, looked to his men, each face a reflection of loyalty and fear. A decision was to be made, and its shadows danced upon their hearts. "O Lord," David cried out, his voice filled with anguish, "may your will be done. If this battle is to reveal the depths of our souls, let it be for your glory." It was in this moment of surrender that he sensed a stirring, a divine whisper echoed in the recesses of his heart encouraging him to stand firm and act wisely. The armies collided, swords flashed with the promise of life and death, and the ground was stained with the tears of loss. Yet even amidst the chaos, a collective strength arose. David's men, inspired by their king's unwavering faith, rallied to him. "We are chosen. We fight not for our lives alone, but for the destiny written in the stars," one warrior shouted, his voice melding into the battle cry through shared conviction. Meanwhile, Absalom, blinded by pride, rallied his own troops, declaring, "Today, let the name of David falter. Let my reign dawn, unchallenged." Yet deep within him, a tremor of doubt began to fester, for even a father has his heart shrouded in conflict. His hands shook upon the spear as he gazed across the field at David, a man who had once shown him love but was now but an adversary. Thus the battle raged, and amidst the turmoil, David's mind turned inward, recalling the words inscribed upon his heart, the Psalms of old, hymns composed in times of refuge and peril. "The Lord is my light and my salvation, whom shall I fear?" he murmured as he fought, emboldened by the promises of God. He remembered how his hands had carved melodies into the air, each note a covenant reminder that deliverance was at hand. But then, as the clash reached its peak, a weighty silence slipped through the tension palpable. David's hands trembled, not from the fatigue of the fight but with the urgency of the moment. He leapt upon a rock, elevating himself as a newly appointed anointed servant of the Lord. "Hear me," he called, commanding the sight of both sides. "The battle is the Lord's. Let us not forget that peace is greater than fleeting victory." His voice resonated across the plains, piercing through the fog of rage and confusion. For a moment, the swords hesitated, and eyes turned toward him, drawn by the gravity of his plea. "Let love reign where discord seeks to dwell. Absalom, my son, do not cast aside your heritage, nor your soul." Yet, amidst this heartfelt display, Absalom remained entrenched, torn between the voice of a father and the dripping allure of a crown. The specter of pride loomed larger in that instant, and David, perceiving the peril, fell to his knees. "O Lord, my heart is breaking. I implore you, intervene. Spare my son, though he stands against me." The clash resumed, but now it danced with a hint of divine ambiguity, for God will move through the hearts of the warriors as a wind shifts the course of a river. Little did they know that God's design stretched beyond the boundaries of their comprehension as promise and grace wove enduring threads through the fabric of this conflict, and as the strife continued, a shadow drifted through the air, a harbinger of an unseen force at work, revealing that the outcome held consequences beyond earthly understanding. For within the tapestry of struggle lay the dawn of a greater revelation, stronger yet than the impact of swords. For God is not done, through this turmoil shall a new chapter unfold. And it came to pass that as the battle raged with fervor, an unseen hand orchestrated the events upon the battlefield. As David's men fought bravely, there arose in the heart of the valley a sudden distress among Absalom's soldiers. Confusion spread amongst their ranks like a swift wind sweeping across the plains. Eyes widened in fear as whispers of dismay echoed through the ranks, "What have we brought upon ourselves?" And at that moment, a man of valor among David's host turned to the king, saying, "My lord, look. The tide shifts. Your prayers are heard." David lifted his eyes, and it was so, he discerned the subtle hand of providence moving. Yet the despair in his heart was mixed with the weight of a father's grief. "Who shall deliver us, O Lord?" he cried, his voice rising like incense to heaven. "Yet, even in the midst of despair, I will hope in you." As he spoke, a deep resolve filled him, and he rallied his men, proclaiming, "Our strength is in the Lord, who makes the heavens and the earth." The clashing steel rang louder as the battle pressed on, but a divine stillness moved among them, a whisper of hope amidst despair. "Though the shadow of death encamps round us," David declared, "we shall not fear. For the Lord is with us." And Absalom, sensing the wavering of his troops, grew agitated as he clutched his spear with trembling hands. Each thrust of his spear echoed his father's words, love and rebellion intertwined, battling within him. "What have I done?" he thought, as the cries of those he commanded began to turn against him. He lifted his voice against the winds, "Is it not my birthright? Will they forsake their king? Will I forsake the throne of my father?" But his heart was encased in turmoil, and the voice of his father beckoned him back to a path of reconciliation. "O Absalom! My beloved son, return from this brink. You not only fight against your father but against the very destiny set before you." Yet in that very hour, David's plea was met with resistance, for pride is a stubborn companion. Absalom yelled to his forces, commanding them to rally, "Hold fast. We shall not yield." Yet his heart churned, torn between the shadows of ambition and the light of familial love. As the day waned, the sun dipped low, casting long shadows over both armies. And then, a force unseen struck fear into the heart of Absalom's troops. An error, a misstep, an unexpected turn, an arrow flew looking for its mark, and suddenly chaos erupted. The cry of the wounded pierced the air, and Absalom found himself separated from his men, alone amidst the frenzy that enveloped them. In that moment of vulnerability, as fear gripped his heart, he stumbled upon a grove of thick branches. "Surely my fate cannot be sealed here," Absalom lamented, sensing the weight of every poor choice bearing down upon him. The cries for help enveloped him like chains, binding him to his deeds. As David fought with his men, he sensed the heart of the battle shift again. "Pray. Seek the Lord's face for our salvation," he commanded, and his faithful followers, unified in purpose, joined in prayer. Their voices a symphony ascended to heaven. The dust settled, and the sun bowed before the night, for darkness and light wrestled over the valley. But as all seemed lost, a voice echoed louder than all the clamor that surrounded them, reverberating through hearts and minds, declaring, "For God's plan is not yet fulfilled. A greater purpose shall rise from the ashes of this conflict, and what seems an end will become a glorious beginning. Await, therefore, for in the midst of trial, God shall reveal the undying truth of his sovereign design." And it came to pass in the hours of that darkened day, as David's men fought valiantly and the cries of battle filled the air, that a messenger sped towards the king's encampment. His breath came in heavy gasps, and his eyes were alight with urgency. "My lord!" he cried, collapsing before David. "The battle rages fiercely, yet victory seems elusive. Your son Absalom he leads with fervor, yet his heart is torn. The tide shifts as chaos envelopes him." David's heart quaked within him, for the life of his son lay in the balance. "What of my son?" he implored the messenger, fearing the worst. "Absalom is ensnared in a thicket of his own making, he is caught in a tree, his glory hangs precariously," the messenger replied. "Our men press forward, yet the cries of his anguish pierce the heart like steel." Upon hearing this, David's countenance fell, for love and sorrow clashed within him. "O Absalom, my son! Would that I had died instead of you!" he lamented, choking back his tears, as the weight of a father's heart bore down upon him. Meanwhile, the battle raged on, each side driven by the will of their leaders. Joab, commander of David's army, discerned a shift and sought to rally the men against the faltering enemy. "Fear not. For the Lord your God fights for us. Press on. Let none waver." Yet in Absalom's heart, turmoil reigned. The branches had snared him, holding him suspended in his own regret. With each gentle rustle of the leaves above, the weight of his choices bore down heavier. "What has driven me to this end?" he wailed, his head bowed low, confusion swirling like the wind in the treetops. As the battle reached its crescendo, news of Absalom's plight spread through David's hosts. Each man, gripped by the gravity of the moment, grappled with the consequence of the king's tumultuous bloodline. Shall we rescue the king's son, or shall his fate be sealed for his rebellion? They pondered among themselves. Joab stood firm, yet within him stirred a tumultuous war. Shall we let him perish after all? He declared, and a resolve surged within him. I will go to him and deliver this boy from harm, even if his rebellion brings our greatest trouble. So Joab pressed through the chaos until he found the radiant tree where Absalom hung. Taking heart, he approached, drawing his sword with deliberate intent. "Absalom!" he called, his voice ringing clear over the whispers of anguish. "Your father's heart is burdened, yet pride blinds you from returning." But Absalom's gaze was fixated upon the ground beneath him, full of regret, full of sorrow, a moment's hesitation costing him dearly. "Is there no mercy for a wayward son?" he pleaded, as Joab raised his sword, the destiny of their bloodline jeering behind them. The sword fell, not with malice but with the heavy weight of what lay before them. Yet at that very instant, a light, the reflection of God's mercy, flashed across the valley, reminding all that in the depths of despair, divine purpose lay waiting to be revealed. As evening descended, shadows long and dark, a voice whispered through the silence like the sound of rushing water, announcing to David, "Refrain from further grief, for in this grave hour, I work my sovereign will. Even through the pain of hearts torn asunder, a new path shall emerge." Thus, the hearts of men trembled, not just at the bitter taste of treachery, but in the awe of an unfolding revelation, and they pondered, what greater purpose does the Lord weave into this dark tapestry? For in the silence that loomed, God's glorious plan began to take shape. And it came to pass that as the twilight deepened over the battle-laden valley, the murmurs of the soldiers grew into a cacophony, reflecting the dread and uncertainty that filled their hearts. Joab, standing solemnly over the lifeless form of Absalom, felt the weight of his decision press heavily upon him. "What have I done?" he whispered, eyes searching the heavens for understanding. Dark clouds gathered above, heralding the approach of a storm, as David, in his tent, trembled at the thought of his beloved son. His spirit was bereft, gripped by despair, as he thought of the fruit of his loins lost to the rancor of rebellion. "O Absalom, my son, my son! Would to God I had died for thee!" he cried out in agony, his voice echoing through the encampment as his men averted their eyes, torn between loyalty to their king and sorrow for the lost prince. As the anguish of David poured forth, the Lord observed from his high throne, his heart moved by the tumult of his anointed. It was then that an angel of the Lord descended, cloaked in light, and stood beside the grieving king. "David, beloved, the angel spoke, with a voice like a soft breeze carrying the fragrance of hope. Your son is at rest, yet the story written in the heavens is far from over. David, startled, lifted his tear-stained visage to meet the gaze of the celestial being. What further torment awaits my house? He implored, his heart heavy with foreboding. Fear not, for this is but a chapter in the grand narrative of redemption, the angel proclaimed. From the ashes of your grief, I shall raise a new lineage, one that shall honor me and fulfill the promise made to your forefather Abraham. Your son may have fallen, but the seed of promise shall not perish. A new king shall arise, whose heart will be after my own. David felt a stirring within him, a flicker of hope igniting against the encroaching darkness. What shall I do, O Lord? He inquired earnestly, as the wind swirled around the tent, echoing the longing of his heart. Go forth, David, and weep no more. Gather your people and lead them, for a new path awaits. As the sun rises anew, so too shall your lineage be restored. Prepare your heart, for the days to come will unveil great trials, yet through them, my covenant shall be fulfilled. Meanwhile, Joab returned from the field, the weight of the day's anguish reflected in every line of his face. My king, he began, kneeling before David, we mourn greatly, yet the battle is not yet finished. Absalom is fallen, but we must rally the men and forge onward. David, filled with a newfound resolve, responded, let us honor his memory by turning our hearts back to the Lord. Gather our people, and let the banner of Judah be raised in praise, for we shall seek the goodness of God in our darkness. As the army collected in the dim light, their hearts still grappling with loss, a murmur spread that resonated above their grief, a word from the Lord, igniting a flicker of hope amidst despair. Though our hearts are troubled, God's promises endure. They echoed, their voices joining in a chorus of faith that rippled through the encampment, enveloping their sorrows in a veil of anticipation. Thus, it was proclaimed amongst them that in the loss there lay an unfathomable mystery, and faith began to stir anew. For while the darkness loomed, the light of divine purpose began to awaken, urging them forward into the unknown, whispering of a future still held within the hands of the Almighty. And at that hour, amidst all the tumult and turmoil, it became evident God's sovereign plan was unfolding, clothed in promise and shadow, leading his people toward a destiny yet unseen. The hearts of men trembled, longing for understanding what further wonders of grace might emerge from this season of mourning. And it came to pass, as dawn broke over the horizon, a fresh light illuminating the land, the hearts of David's men began to stir with renewed vigor. They gathered around their king, seeing his resolute spirit, a testimony to the Lord's promise that had been whispered in the night. David rose from the heavy shadows of grief, the echo of his son's name still ringing in his heart, yet now there bloomed a resolve to lead. Let us arise, my brothers. The Lord has spoken, and his covenant endures. We must reclaim our strength and fight together once more for the land that he has given us, he proclaimed, his voice steady and firm. The men, filled with a blend of sorrow and hope, rallied behind their king, eyes alight with a faith that brushed against the darkness. The sound of swords clashing and shields being raised began to fill the air, as they prepared for the battles that were yet to unfold. Meanwhile, Joab, steadfast in his loyalty and seasoned by the trials they had already faced, approached David with a heart weighed by the burden of leadership. My king, he said earnestly, we must seek out the hearts of Israel. There are those who will doubt your return to power now that Absalom has fallen. They must hear the message of hope you carry. David nodded, understanding the critical juncture at which they stood. Let us send forth messengers, bearers of tidings, that the kingdom shall not falter, that our God reigns and his promises are alive, he commanded, invoking the name of Jehovah. And thus, the messengers were dispatched, running swift as the eagle, spreading word of the king's resolution and the strength of the Lord. As they traveled, they proclaimed aloud, fear not the shadows of morning, for the dawn has come. Rally to the King of Judah, for he will lead us through the fires of trial. The people, stirred by the sentinels of hope, began to gather. Soon, from the murmurs of fear arose a chorus of shouts, renewing the spirit of the nation. They sought their king, longing to see his face and feel the strength of his presence. As noon approached, with the sun hung high and the atmosphere thick with anticipation, David took the opportunity to speak to his people. Standing atop a modest rise, he addressed the throng that had swelled before him, all silent, waiting for words of reassurance. "My beloved people, the Lord our God has not forsaken us," he declared. "In every trial, he is faithful. From tragedy will arise triumph, for we are his chosen, and he shall renew our strength." His words, soaked in the weight of authenticity, reverberated through the crowd like a thunderclap. The people began to chant, "The Lord lives. Blessed be my rock. The God of our salvation be exalted." Psalm 18 verse 46. The very ground seemed to vibrate beneath the energy of their faith. Yet, amid this resurgence of spirit, dark whispers lingered still. Ahithophel, once a trusted counselor, turned conspirator, stirred in the shadows. Understanding that the tides were shifting back toward David's reign, he plotted, hoping to sway Absalom's remaining followers, speaking now of treachery and rebellion. His heart was hardened, plotting against the anointed one of God. Unbeknownst to David, the scheme unfolding in the shadows would soon test the faith and resolve of all. And as David continued to lead, he sensed a profound unrest, as though the very heavens were holding their breath, awaiting the divine decree that would shape the future of his lineage. And thus the chapter would turn once more. What powerful mysteries would God manifest through the struggles of his anointed? What would become of the intertwining fates of the king and his rebels? A deeper revelation awaited just beyond the veil of tomorrow. As David stood before his gathered people, their hearts ignited by newfound hope, he marveled at the breath of God moving through them. He sensed a chorus of celestial voices, like the rustle of leaves in a mighty wind, calling forth the strength of all Israel. In that moment, he felt the Spirit descend, anointing him anew. Brothers and sisters, David began once more, "Our God has not abandoned us. He has delivered us from the hands of our foes, as he did at the Red Sea. Let us remember his mighty acts, for they shine bright as the stars by night, illuminating our path in darkness." Exodus 14 verses 21 to 22. As the cries of the people surged, David turned again to Joab. "Send men throughout Judah, let all know we shall gather in Hebron. We will unite as one, for the Lord our God shall fight for us." Joab, emboldened by the king's fervor, dispatched troops with urgency. They rode forth like horses racing towards battle, cries of victory belongs to the Lord, spilling forth from their lips. Yet, while the hearts of the faithful beat as one, Ahithophel's deceitful words continued to sow discord within the remnants of the rebellion. In the darkness of night, through the fabric of treachery, Ahithophel whispered dire counsel to those willing to be swayed. "Gather your hearts, O remnants of Absalom, for this David will do nothing but bring ruin upon you. He is wounded and will fear, for he has lost much. Strike now while he is vulnerable." But among those who listened was Hushai, a wise and loyal friend of David. He felt stirred by the Spirit, recognizing the treachery lurking in Ahithophel's counsel. "Not so," he retorted, rising with boldness against the tide of rebellion. "Absalom, the man you follow, is but a shadow. David has the heart of the people. His men are mighty warriors, and the very hand of God rests upon him." In that fateful moment, tension thickened the air. Would Absalom heed the dark counsel of Ahithophel, or would Hushai's wisdom guide him towards the life-giving path of reconciliation? As the dawn pierced the horizon, David in prayer sought the counsel of the Lord. "O Lord, hear my cries. Protect my people from their own heart's desires. Do not let the enemy prevail." The words of the psalm echoed through the stillness. "The Lord is my light and my salvation, whom shall I fear?" Psalm 27 verse 1. David found solace in God's promises, yet the watchman of his soul perceived shifting winds. In the gathering twilight, a messenger arrived with tidings of the conflict brewing amongst Absalom's supporters. "O king, the hearts of the people are divided. Some cling to Ahithophel's counsel, others are swayed by Hushai's wisdom. We must act swiftly." David's spirit soared and sank in tumultuous waves. How could he unite a nation so swiftly fractured? Seek the Lord's face and pray for his guidance, he urged Joab and the warriors beside him. For the God of Israel fights for those who stand in his truth, and where there is unity, there is strength. And thus the hour drew near. David realized their fight was not merely against men, but against the very forces of darkness seeking to fracture what God had established. As the battle preparations solidified, the air crackled with divine tension. Who would rise in the face of adversity? And in this hour, shall David's lineage withstand the opposition? Will the hearts of the people be woven together as the strands of a mighty cord? For the unfolding plan of their God, too immense to grasp, in the shadows lay waiting for revelation. A deeper mystery beckoned. What pivotal choices would alter the course of God's sovereign plan? Would faith triumph over deceit, and unity emerge from the ashes of division? The next chapter in divine history was poised to reveal a truth hidden amidst the brewing storm. As the dawn broke over a divided land, the hearts of men pulsed with the shadow of uncertainty. The sun's rays stirred the air, illuminating the choices that lay ahead for David and the remnants of Absalom's rebellion. David, his spirit kindled by prayer, assembled his weary yet resolute warriors atop the ancient hills. Hear me, my people, for our God remains with us. We must stand united, for the enemy seeks to divide and conquer. With fervency igniting his words, he continued, let us remember the mighty acts of our Lord. The walls of Jericho fell, the sea was cleaved, and the night was adorned with stars to guide our forefathers. So shall we rise, for he is our shepherd, and we shall not lack. Each man responded with a resounding shout, echoing a promise of unity, igniting a flame of inspiration to rally amidst the storm. Meanwhile, in the shadows of ambition, Absalom, gathered with the conspirators, listened to the whispers of his advisers. Yet even now, the weight of doubt pressed heavily upon him. Are we to wrest the crown from a heart filled with grief? He questioned, feeling ensnared between the fierce bravado of ambition and the echoes of a father's love. Hushai's plea for wisdom resonated deeply within him, sparking a flicker of uncertainty about the path he had chosen. Joab's response to David's rallying cries flooded the air, a message of rallying hope amidst despair. Together, for the Lord reigns. Echoed through the valleys, reaching even the soul of Absalom, although he clung fiercely to pride. The conflict deepened, rebellion sought to tear apart the very fabric of family, yet, through the tumult, the seeds of reconciliation began to sprout, bearing the scars of conflict. The two sides prepared. David's men forged anew from loyalty and faith, while Absalom's forces stirred from ambition's grip. Lord of all creation, grant us the wisdom to know your way, David prayed aloud, a prayer resonating through the battle-hardened ranks. Days passed, the sun shifting gently across the skies, cradling both sides in a mystical glow as tension brewed. And at last, it was revealed, the morrow called for confrontation. The orchestrated collision sought not only to end conflict but also to unveil a greater design, the restoration of not just a kingdom but of the hearts entangled in rebellion and reconciliation. In the quiet of that fateful dawn, as battle loomed, David grasped the hand of his closest companion, Joab, and with eyes filled with resolve, uttered, "Today we shall honor our covenant with God. Whatever outcome befalls, let it unfold for his glory." As the forces collided like waves against the shore, the earth groaned under the weight of their conflict. David, holding fast to his psalms, reminded himself that even when faced with inconceivable loss, he carried the mantle of God's promise. Though the battle be fierce, the Lord is my fortress. He proclaimed, fighting with a heart bent on redemption. Amidst the storm, Absalom found himself face to face with the weight of choices made, heathen counsel and the love of a father warring within him. Trying to rally his men, he faltered, as the muted cries of truth began to pierce the veil of ambition. Is it possible that I have erred? He pondered, the echo of his father's heart growing louder. And just as the tide turned, a surge of dismay swept through Absalom's ranks. Doubt cascaded like a waterfall as the hearts of his followers wavered. "Do not forsake the blood that runs through you," they cried, giving way to a wave of rebellion tempered by the burning embers of forgiveness. In that very hour, a lone voice risen from the front lines tenaciously called out to Absalom, no son should fight against his father. Remember who you are, what you have been taught. At that moment, Absalom hesitated, casting a glance towards the realm of David, whose cry of love transcended the chaos. Ultimately, the tide had shifted not merely by swords or strategies but through the humble plea for reconciliation. As swords met blades, a sudden stillness fell over the battlefield. David's heart grieved for his son. "Lord, save my boy!" he cried, beseeching mercy in the midst of his agony. Yet, unbeknownst to him, God's hand moved majestically in the backdrop, a testimony of love greater than the chasm created by ambition. In the high places, where sorrow met love, a decision ignited within Absalom. Torn between love and pride, he stood reduced to a choice not of ambition over family, but between life and death. But it is not how one falls, but how one chooses to rise, the remnants of destiny whispered through the threads of his bloodline. It is more blessed to reconcile. And as the imminent clash approached, Absalom grasped the fraying threads of his father's heart and collapsed. Crying as the despair conflated with a glimmer of hope, he called out, "Father, it need not end thus. Peace can reign where rebellion has sown. Forgive me." And in that moment of surrender, the lines divided no longer between father and son, but a collective truth emerged. A cry of redemption echoed through conflict. David felt as if a great weight had lifted. "O Absalom, my son!" as he trembled before the answer to his prayers. Together, through the entangled paths wrought by the heart, they emerged united, undoing rebellion, sealing the wounds of strife, and allowing God's grace to reign supreme. And thus, it came to pass that a kingdom once fractured became renewed, not through mere laws of man, but through a profound sovereignty of grace, that wove together the tapestry laid within the hearts of David and Absalom. God's promises were fulfilled, and thus the tale of a king and his son began its magnificent turn towards divine purpose, not only healing their collective wounds but revealing the deeper truth of God's unfailing love. So let the hearts of those who hear this story be stirred, let faith arise from the ashes, and may the chasms of betrayal be transformed into the bridges of forgiveness. For the plans of God, like the dawn, may seem far off but steadfast in time. His truth shall emerge brighter than the sun. As you meditate on God's divine resolution for David and Absalom, we invite you to respond to the call of faith. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next powerful biblical stories unfolding from God's mighty hand. Leave a like now to help spread God's word through the algorithm, reaching countless souls in need of hope. Comment below your reflections, sharing how this impactful story transformed your faith journey. And do not wait even one more second. Share this powerful testimony with at least 5 friends who need to hear God's truth. Together, let us honor the divine tapestry woven through our lives.